It was a quiet morning in Ohio. The sky was light blue, the wind was soft, birds were singing outside. Inside a small cafe, a man named Tom sat at his favorite table. He drank hot coffee and looked at his laptop. He liked to read the news every morning. Today, the headline surprised him. It said, "The US dollar is falling again." Tom read the words slowly. Then he took a deep breath. Tom was 55 years old. He owned a small factory. His factory made electric tools like drills and saws. For 20 years, Tom worked hard. He hired good workers. He paid them fairly. His factory was not big, but it was strong. It was his life. But now things are changing. Prices were going up. Orders were coming more slowly. And now, the dollar was weak. Tom looked out the cafe window. He thought about what this change might mean. Tom's wife, Susan, sat down next to him. She smiled and asked, "Is everything okay?" Tom pointed to the headline. "The dollar is dropping again. If this continues, our parts will cost more. Our prices will go up. That's not good for us." Susan touched his hand. "We have faced hard times before. We will be okay." Tom nodded, but he was still worried. His factory bought many parts from other countries. Motors from Germany, switches from Japan, plastic from China. All of these were paid for in dollars. If the dollar dropped, the price of everything would rise. After breakfast, Tom drove to the factory. He walked through the production area. The workers smiled and waved. Tom smiled back, but his mind was busy. He opened his office computer and checked emails. One email made him stop. It was from a big customer in Asia. The customer wrote, "We are sorry. We must cancel our order. Your prices are now too high for us. Maybe next time." Tom read the email again. His heart felt heavy. This order was important. It was a big part of next month's income. Without it, the factory could lose money. Some workers might lose hours. He leaned back in his chair and looked at the ceiling. "Is this just about the dollar?" he asked himself. He didn't have the answer. At lunch, Tom sat with his workers in the break room. He didn't want to hide the truth. "Friends," he said, "we lost an order today. It's because of price changes. The dollar is weaker now, but I promise, we will keep fighting. We will find a way." One younger worker raised his hand. "Maybe we can sell online to other countries? Maybe we can take payments in other currencies?" Tom looked at the young man. He smiled for the first time that day. "That's a smart idea," he said. "Maybe a crisis is a chance to grow." Later that night, Tom sat at home. Susan was reading a book. Tom stared at the fire in the fireplace. He thought about the future. Things were not easy, but maybe they didn't have to be terrible. He remembered something his father once said. "The world changes. You can't stop that, but you can choose how you answer." Tom stood up. He opened his laptop. He began to write new ideas, new markets, new payment systems, maybe new products too. He didn't have all the answers, but he had one important thing: hope. The world was changing. The dollar was changing. But Tom decided he would not give up. Tomorrow would bring new problems. But maybe, just maybe, new possibilities too. Far away from Ohio, in the city of Shenzhen, China, a woman named May walked into her factory. She was early, as usual. The sun was just rising and the sky was still soft and pink. May was the team supervisor. She helped manage the workers and made sure all the smartwatches they built were perfect before they were sent to other countries. May checked her phone before the shift began. She saw a news update. US dollar drops again. Exports may be affected. She frowned. This was not the first time she had read something like that. Later that morning, A worker came to May and said, "Another customer in America delayed their order. They said it's too expensive now." May nodded. "I understand. Tell the team to stay calm. We will figure something out." May had been working at the factory for 6 years. She was proud of her work. Their watches were good quality and very popular in the US. But now orders were slowing down. Some co-workers were sent home early because there was not enough work. The company was worried, and so were the workers. Still, May stayed strong. She spoke kindly to everyone and tried to keep the team hopeful. She had an idea.
"Maybe we can design a new product for our local market," she said. "Let's not wait. Let's try."
While May worked in Shenzhen, another story was happening far away in Brazil. A young man named Lucas was sitting in a university library. He was reading articles for a school paper. Lucas was studying economics, and his new paper was about coffee prices. Lucas came from a small town. His family had a coffee farm. For many years, they sold coffee beans to big companies. But this year, things were harder. The cost of fertilizer went up. The price of equipment went up. His parents were stressed. Lucas wrote in his notebook, "When one country's currency changes, many other lives are touched. Even simple things like coffee are no longer simple." Back in Ohio, Tom was also thinking hard. He sat in a meeting with his factory team. He told them about the canceled order and how the dollar was making it hard to keep prices low. "We can't just wait," Tom said. "We need ideas." A young worker raised his hand. "Why don't we try selling online in other countries? Maybe places where the dollar doesn't matter as much. Maybe we can accept euros or pesos." Tom was surprised. He hadn't thought about that. "That's a very good idea," he said. "Maybe a big change can help us grow in new ways." He looked around the room. His workers were listening, and they were starting to feel something new. Possibility. Tom felt it too. It wasn't easy, but maybe there was a way forward. May also started her new project. She talked with her team. They began to sketch designs for a simpler, more affordable fitness band that local people could buy. It wasn't easy, but everyone was excited to try something new. May said, "We can't control the world, but we can control what we do next." Lucas worked late into the night. He finished his paper and smiled. He had learned something important. People in China, America, and Brazil were different in many ways, but they were all affected by the same changes. The dollar moved, and the world moved with it. Lucas wrote one final line in his paper. "We are more connected than we think, and when problems come, we learn to grow together." Across the world, real people were facing real problems. But they were also taking real steps. They were finding new ideas, new hopes, and new ways to move forward. No one had all the answers, but many had the courage to try. The world was still changing, but so were its people. 1 month had passed. The world was still changing, but something new was happening too. People were starting to adapt. They were finding small ways to move forward. Even when the news was still uncertain, many chose hope. In Ohio, Tom stood in front of his computer. He had launched a new website for his factory. The site now accepted not only US dollars, but also euros, yen, and even digital currency. It was a big step. For years, Tom only sold inside the US, but now he was getting orders from other countries like Germany and Chile. He looked at the screen. A new order had just come in from New Zealand. He smiled. Then he called his wife, Susan, to show her the good news. "We're back on track," Tom said softly. Susan hugged him and whispered, "I knew you could do it." At the same time in Shenzhen, May was also smiling. Her team had finished their new product. It was a fitness band designed for the local market. It was simple, affordable, and useful. They had posted the product online, and the response was strong. People liked it. They left kind comments. They were proud to buy something made in China by people like them. May's manager visited her office. He looked at the early sales numbers and said, "You led this. This success belongs to you." May shook her head and smiled. "This success belongs to all of us." In Brazil, Lucas was getting ready for something big. His professor had chosen him to speak at a national student conference. He would present his paper about how changes in the US dollar had affected coffee farmers like his family. Lucas was nervous, but also excited. When the day came, Lucas stood on a small stage. Students from many cities were there. He talked about currency, about trade, and about real people. He told the story of his parents and their coffee farm. He ended with a powerful sentence. "This is not only about money, it's about people, and people can adapt." The audience clapped. Some even stood up. Lucas smiled. He knew his words had made a difference. In many places, more stories were growing. A shipping company in Singapore started offering free online tools to help small businesses accept different currencies. A teacher in Nairobi created a class to help young students understand how the world economy works. In Italy, a grandmother wrote a blog called "How to Shop Smart in 4 Currencies." People around the world were learning, teaching, sharing. Back in Ohio, Tom was sitting at his cafe table again. He drank his coffee and looked out the window. The air felt lighter. Families were walking outside. A group of teenagers laughed nearby. Tom opened his laptop and saw more orders coming in. Things were still not perfect, but he felt hopeful. He thought about everything that had happened. The dollar had fallen. Orders had been canceled. He had felt fear, but he had made a choice. He had decided not to give up. And now he was seeing the results. At home that evening, Tom sat with Susan. The fire was warm. The room was quiet. Susan asked, "Do you think it's over?" Tom thought for a moment. "No," he said. "The world will always change, but I think we're ready now." Susan nodded. They didn't need many words. They had been through it together. Tom looked at the fire and smiled. "The dollar may change," he said, "but our courage does not." And somewhere across the world, in another home, another cafe, or another classroom, someone else was saying something very similar. Because even in hard times, people keep going. They learn, they grow, and they never stop hoping for something better. The future was still unknown. But for Tom, May, Lucas, and many others, that future now had something new. A little more courage, a little more connection, and a lot more hope. Now that you've finished the story, let's take a moment to remember the journey. We met Tom, a factory owner in Ohio. At first, he was worried. The US dollar was falling. Prices were going up. One of his biggest customers canceled an order. He felt afraid. But Tom did not give up. He listened to new ideas. He tried something different. He changed the way his business worked. And in the end, he found success again. We also met May, a factory supervisor in China. Her company was losing export orders. Some workers were scared, but May stayed strong. She started a new project to help her team. She helped her company make products for local people. It was not easy, but it worked. People loved the new product, and May became a leader of hope. And we met Lucas, a student in Brazil. His family's coffee farm was in trouble. Prices had changed. It was hard to sell. But Lucas used his voice. He wrote a paper. He spoke at a conference, and he showed the world that small voices can make a big difference. These people were from different places. They spoke different languages. But they all had one thing in common. They did not give up when times were hard. This story teaches us something very important. The world will always change. Money goes up and down. Problems will come. But what matters most is how we respond. We can complain or we can act. We can be afraid or we can adapt. If we stay calm, stay kind, and keep learning, we will find a way. Now, think about your life. Are you facing a challenge? Maybe you are learning English. Maybe you are worried about the future. Remember what Tom, May, and Lucas did. They kept going, and so can you. Congratulations! You just improved your English listening and reading by following a full story. That is a big step. Now here's a fun question for you. Who came up with the idea to sell products in other currencies? A. Lucas. B. One of Tom's workers. Comment A or B below. Let's see who was really listening. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel so we can keep making more stories to help you learn English. Every click supports us. And if you want to support this channel and help us continue creating free content, feel free to donate if you can. The beginning is always hard and your help means so much to us. Thank you for being here. Keep learning and never stop growing.